On a humid November night in 2000, more than 20,000 people gathered at Ochanja roundabout in Onitsha, watching something that would change Nigerian history forever. In the center of this massive crowd was a man they all knew, Prophet Edward Okeke Onyechi, known to everyone as Prophet Eddie Naugu. His hands were tied, his face bloodied, and the Bakassi boys stood around him with their machetes raised high. The crowd didn't run, they didn't look away. Instead, many of them clapped and cheered as the vigilante group prepared to execute a man they believed was pure evil. But here's the question that haunts this story to this day. What if Prophet Eddie was innocent? What if everything the people believed about him was based on lies printed in cheap magazines and spread through whispers in the market? To understand how we got to this terrifying moment, we need to go back to when Anambra State was drowning in crime and everyone was desperate for a savior, any savior, even if that savior came carrying a cutlass and claiming their jewelry could detect guilt. In the late 1990s, Onitsha was a nightmare. Armed robbers ruled the streets, kidnappers took people in broad daylight, and the police, well, let's just say, if you got robbed on Monday, you might see the same thief drinking beer with police officers on Tuesday. The market, women couldn't sell their goods in peace. Businessmen were closing shops and moving away. Mothers were afraid to send their children to school. It was chaos, pure chaos. And that's when the Bakassi boys entered the picture. They started in Aba. First, young men who were tired of watching criminals destroy their community. They formed a vigilante group, but not just any vigilante group. These boys claimed they had special powers. They wore necklaces that would spark when a criminal was near. They carried cutlasses that would turn red when placed on the chest of someone with blood on their hands. It sounds like something from a Nollywood movie, but people believed it because they were desperate. And here's the thing, it worked in Aba. Crime dropped dramatically. The Bakassi boys would catch a suspect, interrogate them, and if they believed the person was guilty, they would execute them right there in public. No court, no judge, no lawyer, just swift, brutal justice, and the people loved it. When Governor Chinwoke Mbadinuju invited the Bakassi boys to Anambra State in 1999, people celebrated like Nigeria had won the World Cup. Finally, someone was going to clean up Onitsha. Finally, the criminals would pay. But there was one name that kept coming up in whispers and rumors. Prophet Eddie Naugu, the man who some said was the most dangerous person in all of Anambra State. Now, who was this Prophet Eddie? Edward Okeke was born in the small community of Naugu in Anambra State. Not much is known about his childhood, but by the time he was 29, he announced to the world that God had given him special powers. He could see the future, heal the sick, and help people with their problems. He wasn't trying to be like other pastors with their big churches and fancy suits. No, Prophet Eddie was different. He opened what he called a healing center. But when you walked in, it looked more like a shrine than a church. There was a giant statue of Jesus, and right next to it, a statue of Prophet Eddie himself, standing on what looked like the devil. Politicians came to him for spiritual guidance before elections. Rich businessmen sought his help for their ventures. Poor people brought their sick children, hoping for miracles, and Prophet Eddie helped many of them for free. He was known for his charity work, taking in homeless children, helping people with mental illness, feeding the hungry, but he was also known for something else. his loud mouth. Prophet Eddie wasn't afraid of anyone. He would criticize politicians, openly call out traditional rulers, and speak his mind about everything wrong with society. This made him enemies, powerful enemies. And in Nigeria, having powerful enemies is like dancing with snakes. Eventually one will bite you. Then the rumors started. And when I say rumors, I mean the kind of stories that make your blood run cold. Someone printed in a magazine that Prophet Eddie had stolen 16 babies from a maternity ward, pounded them in a mortar, and drank their blood. 16 babies. Think about that for a second. If 16 babies really went missing from a hospital, wouldn't it be the biggest news in Nigeria? Wouldn't the nurses be arrested? Wouldn't families be crying on television? But no. The only time you heard about these 16 missing babies was when someone was accusing Prophet Eddie. Another story claimed he had killed 93 men, cut them into pieces and used their body parts for rituals. 93 grown men, and somehow nobody reported them missing. Nobody saw anything. Nobody had any evidence except what was printed in those cheap magazines that people bought for 20 naira at the motor park. But people believed it. They read these stories and they believed every word. Why? Because Prophet Eddie was different. His healing center didn't look like a normal church. He dealt with politicians and rich men. He was outspoken and proud, and in Nigeria, sometimes being different is enough to make people think you're evil. The rumors spread like wildfire. Prophet Eddie uses human parts for money rituals. Prophet Eddie is the one supplying guns to armed robbers. Prophet Eddie is a sorcerer who drinks baby blood. And the more people heard these stories, the more they believed them, even though not once did the police arrest him. Not once did anyone come forward with real evidence. Not once did any family claim their baby was among the 16 supposedly stolen. When the Bakassi boys arrived in Onitsha, they heard all these stories, and they decided Prophet Eddie had to go. They tried to catch him 13 times. 13 times. They went to his house and couldn't find him. This only made them more convinced that he was using dark powers to escape them. How else could he keep disappearing? Finally, they went to their leader, a mysterious man in a wheelchair who some say controlled all their spiritual powers. Whatever this man did, it worked. Because on November 4th, 2000, at 2 in the morning, 40 Bakassi boys stormed Prophet Eddie's house. His wife later told the story. Of that night, she said they were sleeping when they heard a loud bang on the door, before she could even ask who it was. The door was broken down, and dozens of men rushed in. "Where is your husband?" they shouted. She pointed to where Prophet Eddie was sleeping, and they dragged him out of bed still in his nightclothes. They searched the entire house looking for evidence, looking for the guns, the human parts, the charms, anything that could prove the rumors were true. You know what they found? Nothing. Not a single gun. Not one human bone. Not even a suspicious-looking charm. The only thing they found were his 8 children sleeping in their beds and one other child in a separate room, who his wife explained had mental problems and was being cared for by them. But the Bakassi boys had already made up their minds. Evidence or no evidence, Prophet Eddie was guilty in their eyes. They took him away and kept him for 5 days. During those 5 days, his family tried everything to get him released. Politicians wrote letters, people protested, even military officers questioned what evidence the Bakassi boys had. But the people of Onitsha were on the streets demanding that Prophet Eddie be handed to the Bakassi boys, not the police. They didn't trust the police. They said the police would just collect bribe and release him. They wanted vigilante justice. On November 9th, the Bakassi boys made their decision. They claimed that when they put their special necklace on Prophet Eddie, he confessed to everything they claimed. Their cutlass turned red on his chest, proving he was guilty. They even said they had a tape recording of his confession. But here's the funny thing. The recording that was played on local radio stations wasn't Prophet Eddie's voice. It was clearly someone else pretending to be him. And that origin tape, the Bakassi boys claimed to have, nobody ever saw it. They said they sent it to the governor, to the president, to important people. But it vanished like smoke. Till today, nobody has seen or heard this supposed confession. But it didn't matter. The crowd at Ochanja roundabout didn't need to hear any tape. They had already decided Prophet Eddie was guilty, based on rumors, based on stories in cheap magazines, based on fear and superstition. When the Bakassi boys raised their machetes, the crowd cheered when they struck him down. Many clapped when they set his body on fire. People celebrated. They believed they had witnessed the death of an evil man. But what if they were wrong? Think about it for a second. Everything people knew about Prophet Eddie came from rumors printed in magazines and newspapers that anyone with a printing press could produce. This was the year 2000. There was no social media where someone could defend themselves. No blogs where Prophet Eddie could tell his side of the story. If someone printed that you ate babies and sold human parts, how would you prove you didn't? Especially if people were already suspicious of you because you were different. After Prophet Eddie's death, more people started questioning the Bakassi boys and their methods. How can a necklace tell if someone is guilty? How can a cutlass detect blood on someone's hands? What kind of justice system kills people based on jewelry and rumors? Slowly, people began to realize that maybe, just maybe, they had given too much power to young men with machetes who claimed to have magical crime-detecting abilities. The Bakassi boys eventually lost their power, but Prophet Eddie was already dead. His 8 children were already orphans. His wife was already a widow, and nothing could bring him back. Today, when you research Prophet Eddie Naugu, you'll find the same stories about 16 babies and 93 men. But you won't find any police reports. You won't find any families who came forward. You won't find any evidence. Just stories that were printed in magazines and believed by desperate people who wanted someone to blame for their problems. So I ask you again, what if Prophet Eddie was innocent? What if he was just a different kind of religious leader who helped the poor and spoke his mind too loudly? What if the only crime he committed was being too vocal, too proud, too different in a society that feared what it didn't understand? We'll never know for sure, because mob justice doesn't care about truth. It only cares about what people believe. And on that November night in 2020, 1,000 people believed that Prophet Eddie deserved to die. This is the danger of vigilante justice. This is what happens when we let fear and rumors guide our actions. This is why even the most hated person deserves a fair trial, because sometimes the crowd is wrong, sometimes the rumors are lies, and sometimes innocent people die, while the guilty ones print more newspapers. The story of Prophet Eddie Naugu isn't just about one man's death. It's about how quickly we believe the worst about people who are different, how easily we can be manipulated by those who control information, and how dangerous it is when justice is delivered by a mob instead of a court. It's a warning that still echoes today in our social media age, where rumors spread even faster and mob justice can destroy lives in minutes instead of days. So the next time you hear a story that sounds too terrible to be true, the next time everyone around you is convinced someone is guilty based on what they read or heard, ask yourself one question: where is the evidence? Because without evidence, all we have are stories, and stories, especially the horrifying ones, are not always true. Just ask the ghost of Prophet Eddie Nagu if you believe in such things, or if you don't, then simply remember that somewhere in Naugu, Anambra State, 8 children grew up without their father because 20,000 people believed a lie. That's the true tragedy of this story. Not just that a man died, but that we'll never really know if he deserved it. And that uncertainty, that doubt, that's what should haunt us, because it means this could happen again to anyone who dares to be different in a society that fears what it doesn't understand.